Well, here we are. It is Friday, October 20th, 2023, and this is the weekly video. As many of you know, we do these each Friday. We take a look and see what's been happening in the Asian art market, auctions in particular, see what the prices were, did they bring what we thought they'd bring, and all that. And thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, I know a lot of you, we look at the statistics on it, there's a lot of you that watch the videos every week and aren't subscribers, so subscribe. Somebody pointed out this week that we posted a video yesterday on the topic of reserves and auctions and so forth, and he got notified immediately. And I forget what country he's in, Canada or someplace. He was notified immediately, so it's a good way to keep up to date. Anyway. Here we are. It's been a really busy week. There's been some very good auctions. I know some of you have been paying attention, and I'm going to talk to them. There's a couple of sales that took place that I want to talk about, some of the highlights of the sales and how well they did, and that is the Brunks sale down in Asheville, which had some great things. Brunks always does a good job. I'm a huge fan of Brunks, as many of you know. I like how they run their place. Fremman's had a good sale. They had some nice results. And there was one lot at Skinner's that took off this week, and I'm going to talk about that because we talked about it in the preview, one of the preview videos a few weeks ago, and it did very well. I want to go through it and show you some of the prices. Let's see here. This was we're getting into the Brunk sale, I think, on this page. This thing first. This is the Skinner sale. Many of you may recall there was this very large, unusual Kangxi period Maping vase. This thing was 25 inches tall, which is a very big vase in this form. It's highly unusual. And it was estimated, we talked about it, I thought the estimate was fairly modest. It was 30 to 40,000 or something, 20 to 40,000, which is a pretty wide-ranging estimate. And it's a hard base to estimate because it's very unusual for its size. They provided a very nice picture of the base of it, and has underglazed red, underglazed blue. Some of the red didn't come out probably quite the way the potter had hoped. So it was a little, not a misfire, but not quite what they'd hoped for. And it had some imperfections and so forth on the piece. It had this, it looks like areas of celadon on the white ground, which is fine, but some of the other areas were off a little bit. But it still did really, really well. In the end, it brought $100,000 when you include the buyer's premium. The hammer price was $80,000 plus 25%, so that brings it up to the $100,000 mark, which was a very strong price. And it's 26 inches tall, not 25 inches tall. And all they said about it was it came out of a New Hampshire collection, which doesn't surprise me at all. I live in that part of the world, and there's a lot of good porcelain still floating around in New England houses, and they will continue to come out for many, many, many years because they were gathered over many, many, many years, hundreds of years since the late 18th century. New Englanders have been getting Chinese porcelain. So there we are. And this is just another great example. I don't know how what the origins of this one was, but bravo. It was a good piece, so they got a very good price for it. If the red had been a little bit redder and not quite so brown in tone, if it had been a good clear cherry red or something like that, this vase probably would have brought 300,000. But the underglazed red, underglazed blue, as we've talked about many times, is tricky to fire because both of them develop their color in the kiln at different temperatures, basically. So balancing it so that you get the right temperature so that both colors bloom well is a real difficult thing. You'll notice over here the flowers on it came out pretty well. That's a better red than what the tree trunk turned out to be, but on the pine tree, but it's still of good price. It's a nice piece of porcelain. So congratulations to Skinner's on that. And then over to the Brunk sale. Let's see here. This sale took place. When was this? This was 2 days ago. The 19th. It was yesterday. There was this Republic period vase, very unusual. I put it on the global member pages because I thought it was just, a very interesting piece. And I think a lot of people probably thought this was a modern knockoff of some kind. This isn't. This is a Republic vase. Very unusual form with these sort of flanges, roux head flanges around where the lid fits in. This very nice handle, and then these gilded butterflies and flowers all over it. Very, very unusual vase. And there's the bottom of it with a chin-lung mark. It's not a chin-lung vase. It's a Republic vase, but highly unusual. highly unusual form. I'm not sure what the prototype for it was, or was it just something they came up with? They didn't date it. They didn't offer a date to it at all. They just said it's a Qianlong mark on it. But obviously, some people probably went digging around in the palace archives and National Palace Museum and so forth, and probably found a comp for it in there. And that's what drove the price. So this ended up bringing 85,000 plus the 20, about $105,000. And then there was this. This was the shocker of the sale. Was this when we talked about them in the preview, and I had assumed that this was most likely a Ming Dynasty Zhende incense burner. These two pieces brought $250,000. So that indicates that this was probably market period. I didn't see any other information about it. There was a lot of wear on the foot, but somebody out there, or a number of people out there, spotted it, probably found a comp for it somewhere, and went after it. This one, the vase itself, this vase is clearly a later Ming, but apparently the audience, when they inspected this on the big incense burner in person, found it to be period, which is really unusual. They don't turn up very often. And it ended up selling, well, based on the hammer price, upwards of $300,000 for the lot, which for a Zhende market period incense burner would be in line. That would be appropriate. So that's what the audience decided. It must have been very heavy and very, very, be very impressive in person. And then there was this, the transitional period blush pot. I had a number of people inquire about it. I don't know if any of you bought it, because they were wondering, because there are so many copies and fakes of transitional period pots, we did have this on the global pages because we thought it to be a genuine transitional piece. It also had an Eleanor Gordon sticker on the bottom, and she didn't sell fakes, which helped. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean because it has a sticker she sold it, but it certainly is the type of thing she would have sold if she had access to it. And it looked like she sold it for $1,500, probably 35 years ago. And at the time, that was considered to be a good price for transitional wares. But this time around, it brought $9,500 plus premium. So around $12,500 US, which is in line with these. I'd even left a bid on it, by the way, and I didn't get it. I'm rather disappointed, but that's the way it goes. And now over to this. Is the robin's egg glaze miniature vase. I talked about this a few weeks ago. I thought it was very, very nice. I thought the estimate was extremely reasonable, and it did much better than the estimate. With the buyer's premium tacked onto that, it ended up selling for about $5,800 to $6,000, but a very, very nice example. Very, very nice example. Beautiful glaze, creamy surface. It did really, really well, and it was sold by Anita Gray, who, of course, is a very big dealer over in London. Was very active for many years, and she handled great things. This was something she had sold, possibly Qianlong. We seem to think, we agreed with her that it's probably an 18th century pot, and the price that it brought seems to indicate that it's an 18th century pot too. All right, and then over to this, that big Katani vase that was estimated at $600 to $900. There was quite a bit of interest in it. I thought it was wonderful, big, very gutsy, 18 inches tall, and in very nice condition, well marked, but meticulous decoration with these fantastic gilded dragons on them. Love the dragons on this piece. Absolutely great, very animated. And it did fine. It did fine in the end, of course. It ended up selling for $2,200 plus premium, so came in at around probably out the door at around what does that come out to? About $2,700, $2,800 for it, which is a pretty good price for Katani ware, I must say. But it deserved it. This was a nice thing, and I'm not surprised. A couple of people absolutely had to have it, and one of them got it. And then over here to the tables, these gilded Chinese carved lacquer tables that we talked about, because I think what they appear to be is that these shelves came along. Somebody had the shelves, and they got a very nice table base to go under it. I still don't think this is a Chinese base. It may be. I've never seen one like it, though. But I think it's more likely a European chinoiserie base from the 18th or 19th century that somebody had a pair of them, and they fitted those brackets on top. And I thought it was just a great package, absolutely elegant. I thought the estimate was very, very low, and in the end it was. They estimated it at 2,500 to 4,000, and in the end, with the premium, it ended up at around what about 77,000, 7,200, somewhere around there for the pair. But that's not a bad buy. When we talked about it before, I think it's if you pay 10,000 for them, it's okay. These were great. These are really great. The only problem is if you bought them, you're going to have to get them shipped, and they're going to be a bear to ship unless you're lucky enough to live in the area. That's always look at auctions in your own area, because you are at an immediate advantage, especially on furniture, over people who are bidding over the internet, because you don't have to worry about the shipping costs. You can take it with you, old-fashioned way. Swing by the auction house, pick your stuff up, and save yourself, serious money, especially on furniture. So if you lived in the Asheville area or within a 2-hour drive, you had an opportunity here. Those were really, really nice. Loved those. And Brunks did a good job. Everything in the sale did well. And then we get over to the Fremman sale, and they did well. There was this very nice soapstone carving. Ended up selling for 2,600 plus premium, so around 3,500. We're sort of at the upper end of its estimate, but not a surprise. This was a wonderful carving, beautifully detailed, nice color, good condition, and big. It was 10 inches long. This is a big hunk of soapstone, beautifully carved, nice color. I would like it better if it was a pair, but a single is fine too. But a pair of these would be awesome. And then the bowl, 18th century Gendi, but 18th century with a Gendi mark, but possibly 18th century. And the room loved it. And then maybe some people felt it was period. I'm not sure, but it ended up selling for a very, very strong price. There's the bottom of it. Ended up going for 17,000 plus premium. So you're up around 24,000 for it, which is about 5 times its high estimate. But I thought it was a great bowl. People that were there maybe decided once they handled it that it could be a period bowl. I don't know. The decoration on it looked awfully good, I have to say. And the shape would be very atypical for 18th century. It looks like some people had some belief that it was probably period, because I think at that price you have to think that the bidders believed it to be mark and period, because an 18th century bowl with a Gendi mark on the bottom, you don't see them very often, for one thing, and it would have brought more likely 4,000 to 6,000. Otherwise, so I think maybe we may see that bowl again. Remember it. You may see it not too far distant future in a Christie sale or a Hong Kong sale, somebody else. All right, and then the Lang Yao copper red Ballister vase, Kangxi period. Again, we looked at this last week, and as we said, the estimate is very, very low. And as we mentioned in the videos the other day, estimates are not necessarily what the auction house think the thing is worth. It's the price that the consignor is willing to put it in at, and the estimate can be an enticing. A low estimate can be very, very enticing to get interest, because anybody that buys these knows that 8 to 12 would have been a bargain price, and with an $8,000 low estimate, that means the reserve can't be any higher than $7,500 or $7,700 in all likelihood at the most, if it was even there. Knowing Brunks, the reserve was probably set at around 3,000 or 4,000, but because they don't like reserves down there either, and I don't blame them. It went for 17 plus premiums for about 22,000, 23,000, which is very much in line with what vases of this type have been bringing lately. They got the money, as they say. The money came in. And then the iron red bowl no, excuse me, that wasn't at Brunks. That was at Fremman's. Fremman's doesn't like reserves either, actually. So they got a good price for it. They were a good audience, and they got the money. And then the iron red bowl that we like so much, that was estimated at just 1,000 to 1,500, that also did very well. It brought 4,000 plus premium, so it sold for about $5,000. And I think that was a great buy. I think this is a really interesting bowl. Those of you who buy Kangxi bowls will think about this and say, how often do you see this style or this pattern on these bowls with underglazed red, a little bit of underglazed blue, beautifully shaped, nicely potted bowl. And the red really bloomed well when they fired this. This is when we were talking about the Skinner vase before. This was the color they were hoping for. But if the firing doesn't go exactly right, it can either turn brown or green. You can get some real oddball colors. But there's the entire interior of it, nicely painted too. The fish is very animated looking. He looks like he's about to swim out of that thing. Really, really liked it. And of course, it had a Ming mark on the bottom, which doesn't mean anything, which they were often applied. If this had been a Kangxi mark and period bowl, you probably could add a 0 onto that selling price. But at any rate, it went for about $5,000 all in, including the premium. But a great thing to add to a collection. Great thing. And then this, the grisaille decorated teapot that we talked about, I just liked it. I just thought it was very unusual. I had a high estimate of $700. It made the high estimate, and plus the premium. So again, up around 900 and what does that come out to? About $950 for the teapot. So it went a bit over estimate, but I thought this was a wonderful thing. If you're an export collector, I hope one of you got it, because this was a very interesting pot. And I liked all the details. It was meticulously painted. Beautiful piece. And there you go with that. And then this, the big plaque, the familiar rose decorated fisherman plaque. I think this was a very good buy with the premium. It came in at close to $5,000. But what a wonderfully decorated plaque this is. Just beautiful, beautiful plaque. And it was big. This was a big plaque. This wasn't some 5-inch plaque. It was 18 inches across, like a big platter. And I think I can't think of the last time I saw one in this style with this particular scene. I thought the colors were great. I just really, really liked this. Thought it was an elegant thing, and had that lovely lime green with pink flower border running around it. And then you have these very structured rocks in the background, and how they're layered. And that's the same way you see them done on Qinlong vases and vases even in the 19th century. And they've got the cormorants fishing down in the lower right. That was, and there's a bunch of them over here. There are the baskets for the fish. Nice scene. So about 5,000 with the premium. So it did fine in the end. And then the garden barrels. I think these were the steal of the week. They went for $5,000 plus premium, so about $6,800 all in, $7,000 somewhere around there. But these are absolutely great. These are rare. They're wonderfully painted, and I don't think that was even close to an overpayment. If they'd gone for $10,000 or $15,000, I wouldn't have been at all surprised. Because you're not going to see, remember these, and somebody email me the next time you see a pair of these turn up at an auction somewhere or in a collection, because it's very rare form, extremely rare. But they're export wares, and maybe people, don't focus that much on very rare forms of export wares. But I thought those were just tremendous. Maybe they've been heavily restored. I don't know. I didn't see the condition report. They didn't really say, but it was a very, very good choice. Hold on, phone call. Oh, excuse me, just a quick call from a neighbor about something. So anyway, I thought this was a absolutely great buy. If one of you bought these, excellent. Let me know. And then the bird cage. I thought I'd throw this in at the end because we had seen that other bird cage that brought $180,000 at Christie's, and it was a very similar form, almost identical to this one, except this one wasn't made out of Zetan, of course, but I thought it was an awful nice bird cage. It looked to be in very good condition, very well made, Southern China, and probably from around the same period, Republic period. And a lot of people liked it, and it blew through the estimate just fine and ended up selling for $3,250 plus premium, so about $4,000, about $1,500 over its high estimate. And that's a good result. So there's still there were still some good sales after the big sweeps down in New York, the Asia Week and so forth. We went through these. There were some very nice other things also in the Brunks sale. I hope a lot of you browsed it. There was some good other Japanese wares in here. There were some nice prints. You really need to go through these auctions. If you use the global pages, we sort of pull them all out for you, the ones that we think are the best, the most interesting. And there's a lot of stuff on those pages right now, and there's a series of sales coming up. There's a banner on the homepage of the website that shows there are a bunch of sales coming up at Bonham's. these 5 sales in the next month. So do check those out. Well worth it. There's some nice items in there. And there's a few very good sales in the U.S. Right now, the pages are pretty full of things. It's kind of surprising because we just finished Asia Week, and there seems to be still lots and lots and lots going on here and there. All right. And now over to eBay results for the week. There was this. I think this was a terrific buy. Mid-19th century flambe glaze Hu form vase Qing. I thought this was a really good buy. Really, really good buy. Very nicely done. Ended up going for $1,113. I think that was very inexpensive for that. It was the color was just glowed. I think that was a very, very nice buy. Maybe the guy that bought it won't pay for it and they'll get relisted, because I think some people missed out on that one. It was a good piece. And then the painting, the fan painting, the ink fan painting here. Let's see if we can find one where he included the whole fan. There it is. And nicely founded frame, simply done, sort of on this bamboo background. Nice ink drawing, probably mid to late 19th century. Very, very atmospheric. I love the bamboo trees and the figure in the foreground, the flowing robes and all that. This was a nice little bit of artwork. There it is, and it was Oscar Rudolph Framers in New York. That looks like a frame from about 1940, from what I can see. I don't know if Oscar Rudolph is still in business, but they took it to him to get it framed. This was a nice picture, and I think it was somebody got a very good buy on it. $510. Good. That was a good buy. Very good. And then over to the Buddha. We see these porcelain Buddhas come up. People love them. People that collect Chinese porcelain, they always seem to have one of these Buddhas in the house. We call these brick Buddhas because of the brick pattern and the text on brick backs, because the back of it's all bricked. It looks like a wall of bricks. And this is a nice one, sort of early part of the Republic period, probably made about 1915 or so. Has the little Jingda Chen factory stamp on the side here. Very nice, a happy little fellow. Every house should have a Buddha in it. And somebody's going to have this in their house for $2,149. It was a good price, but that's not an unusual price for these. If it's a good example, well stamped, in nice condition with no repairs or damage, that's what they bring much of the time. Sometimes they go for $1,500. Sometimes they go for $2,500. This was right in the middle. This was sold by Arthur Potts over in Dorset. And then over to this I think was one of the great buys of the week. I don't know where everybody was, but somebody bought this export bowl, armorial bowl with the hawk on it for $215. This was a wonderful piece of porcelain, very finely decorated, outstanding quality, and it should have brought probably $800 or $900 at least. Somebody stole this, and good if it's one of you. Again, another piece from Eleanor Gordon. When you see Eleanor Gordon's labels on things, maybe many of you don't know about Eleanor Gordon, but she was the premier China trade porcelain dealer. She and Elma Porter, who you've never heard of, who was a very influential private dealer up in the North Shore here, very close to Salem Hospital, and there were some books and catalogs done of her things. Another top China trade dealer for many, many years. She sold out of her house. If you went to her house, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to finish this. A very nicely done bowl, meticulous decoration, in good shape, a rare type. And I don't know, maybe some people thought it was European or something, or it wasn't Chinese. Absolutely Chinese, absolutely a bargain. $215. Now back to Elma Porter. I want to talk about Elma a little bit. She and her husband lived near the beach drive, shore drive there through Beverly in Massachusetts, just on the road from here. And she lived in a very, very pretty house, and her whole house was basically a shop. And she and her husband lived on the second floor in this sort of apartment, and they had all kinds of great China trade stuff in there. amazing rose mandarin, armorial wares, all these pieces. A number of her pieces are at the Peabody Essex Museum now. She was pretty generous with giving things to them. There was the disgraced but very brilliant Chinese porcelain researcher, John Quinton Fellers. He was one of these researchers that was going around doing research in museums all up and down the East Coast. And when he was there, he would take things, basically steal them. And then what he would do is he would reallocate them to another museum. So there was a pair of bowls or dishes, I recall, that he stole from the Winter Museum. And then he ended up donating them to another museum to help fill out their collection, because he was very aware of what all the museums had. And he wasn't profiteering from it. He was sort of doing his own little redistribution, trying to balance out the collections thing. And he would make them gifts. And Elma Porter, being a very experienced dealer, she would say things like, there's something funny about this Mr. Fellers where he's getting all these things, because she was keenly aware of how hard rarities are to find, and he was finding rarities all the time. Well, turns out he was sneaking them out of old museum collections and then giving them to other museums. And she was always wondering, how does he get so lucky all the time if he's just writing books? And and Mr. Fellers ended up on 60 Minutes back in the 80s, and it was a great humiliation. And it's a shame, because he was a very, very smart guy, but he was a little off his rocker, I think, when he did all that. But Elma had great things. And on the first floor of her house today, he'd have a line of 400 she'd have a line of 400 Chinese dealers outside that house every morning when she opened, because the entire first floor of her house, dining room, living, it was a big house, a big New England colonial center entrance house. On the left side and the right side, in the first floor, in the back, in the kitchen, and all the pantries on the first floor were filled with non-export Chinese porcelain. Filled, stacked up, Ming bowls, all kinds of Guangzhou wares, Xuan, that sort of thing, Blanc de Chine figures, all the things that didn't fit into the China trade box she had on the first floor of her house. And they were very modestly priced. I used to go in there all the time and go through the stacks of things, and she had more in storage that her husband, she'd have bring out more when they sold a few things off the first floor, because most of the people that went to see her were only interested in China trade. And they would walk right through the first floor and go up the stairs to the apartment where the Chinese export stuff was, and select things out of those rooms. But the first floor was often completely abandoned. And there were a couple of dealers, myself included, would go in there and just sort of scoop up as much as we could as new things came in, because she was always getting house calls. Everybody loved her. She paid well on the house calls. When she bought things, she was fair in her prices, and she did a very good business. She was very, very successful. But Elma Porter was, and Eleanor Gordon used to buy from her as well. But she was one of the classics, and she passed away about 20 years ago. But she was pretty wonderful lady. She was fun, very encouraging to new dealers. She tried to tell. When I was first started, I went in there when I was about 3 or 4 years into the business, and she was always directing me to things that I should look for and whatnot. And she was a nice person. She was a really, really nice person. Everybody misses her. All right, and then over here to this, the Jade Plaque. This was Juice, Josh Chamberlain in New Hampshire sold this. This is a nice plaque. It probably came off of a scepter, I suspect, at some point. But meticulously carved, 18th, early 19th century. Nice, crisp carving, good color. Looked absolutely, the style of the carving looked very, very good, I thought. And in the end, it did fine. It brought $2,113, which is about right. And then the big pair of jars, these were restored, so we weren't quite sure what they would bring. And in the end, they brought $3,716, which I think was on the low side, but I didn't see the condition report, and I don't know how extensively they were restored, so I can't really judge them from that standpoint. I didn't write to Josh and ask him what the restoration areas were, because if you ask Josh, he'll tell you. He's very straightforward about that kind of thing. This area looks restored up in here. I think that's why he photographed it. But at any rate, they still brought, as great decorations, $3,716. Not bad at all. And then the Wanli bowl that was repaired, it did fine in the end. It brought $1,683, right about where we thought it might bring. I think we said $1,500 to $2,000, maybe a little more. In the end, it brought $1,683. So it landed right in that sweet spot. But the seller had very nice photographs. I have to give the guy compliments on this. He didn't have a fancy background or anything, but his photographs were very, very viewable in different light. He had a nice one. He showed all the repairs and damage. Look at all the arrows. He did some serious editing here to make sure you saw exactly what you were getting. And that kind of work, that kind of extra effort really pays off. It helps you get the price that it deserves. And with that many little red arrows inside, I think you got the right money for it. And then last is this. This was in Josh's sale. I threw this in at the end because I wanted to remind everybody about it. This was that dandy tassel hanging thing. And instead of these little plaques, these little plaques being silk, which they often are, these were carved of wood and then colored with polychrome. And they were in very, very nice condition. I didn't see any damage to them. These plaques can easily get cracked, and they're obviously got age to them. Nice old surface. Love the carving, the sort of archaistic dragon here coming around the Shao character, and these very exuberant volutes going around the edges. And there you have it. Very, very nice. And it did fine in the end. It brought $2,025, but it was 36 inches tall. This was not a small, 10-inch thing. This was a nice big hanging, and in a shadow box displayed well under UV filtering glass to make sure it doesn't get affected by light. I think that was a really, really good buy. I think this was a very nice thing. And as I said, Josh is in New Hampshire. He's here in New England. He finds things and puts them up here. All right, and that's about it for the week. There's going to be some new things on the global on the newsletter page this week. This was last week's newsletter page, and as you know, it was pretty full of things. Everything seemed to do pretty well. I think that Eleanor Gordon bowl that I mentioned earlier, that 18th century bowl for $215 was probably the steal of the week. I thought that was a very good buy. I didn't check to see what that sold for. Did that sell yet? Winning bid, $1,025. This was that planter that we talked about last week, but it had a chip out of it, which held the price back, obviously. All right, that's it. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And those of you that joined Patreon this week, thank you. And check over there because we've added some new catalogs. Somebody sent me a really, really nice PDF file of a book on Japanese porcelain. And we've added that over there into the section, as well as yesterday's video. This video will be there, of course. And if you subscribe and you join Patreon, you can watch the videos advertisement free. It's one of the little things we can upload it there and make sure there are no ads on it. So if you're sick of ads, maybe think of doing that. All right, and you want to help the channel, which is why we do it, because we use the money. Any money we make off the site goes back into the site every week, pretty much. All right. Thanks so much. Subscribe, leave a comment, and everybody have a great weekend. Halloween's coming, so don't forget to buy your candy, and we'll see you all next week. Okay. Bye-bye.